Hello.
Did you sign the release saying yes?
Oh, I didn't. But I'm okay with being live streamed. Verbal consent. Thank you. Date is that okay? Cool. Thanks. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, everyone, so next up we have Alyssa Wigant from Elephant. She's a visual designer who works on site with Apple on the daily, but she's also a live streaming lettering artist by night. So she's known for her dynamic and whimsical typographic illustrations and murals, and she strives to merge pixel-perfect details with free-flowing artistry to always create something out of the ordinary. So here's Alyssa.
Hi. Wow, what a great bio. I wonder who wrote it. Hey everyone, my name is Alyssa. I'm really excited to be here. 3 years ago, I was sitting where you were and in these presentations, and I remember being in them and not really seeing like where I fit in them as a design. I knew I loved design and illustration, but a lot of the talks were, I didn't see myself in them. So I hope all of you can take something from this one. I tried to make it really visually exciting and cool. So here we go. I'm gonna go through who I am, what I did at Cal Poly and GRC, and then how that kind of translated into the career I have and the windy road that it was, and the things I did on the side that has also added to my career. So here we go. So hey, I'm Alyssa. I am currently a visual designer at Elephant. Elephant is a digital design agency in San Francisco. We have a number of clients. Our biggest one is Apple, and other ones include Twitch and Chevron. And what's cool, I'll go into what it's like being at an agency, but I really like being there because there's multiple projects we can do. And as a visual designer, I'm working on more product design, more user interface design, and we're working with real users and solving real problems. So it's really exciting. On the side of all of that, I stream artwork on Twitch. I am a lettering artist. I create typographic illustrations, and I share this process all online from start to finish for people to watch and interact with. So people, and I'll go into this, I talk to people on the internet and they see me draw things, and it's not weird at all. And also, lastly, I graduated Cal Poly class of 2016 in December from GRC. I had 4 years and a quarter, so I'll talk about why that's relevant, but I was a GRC major. I concentrated in DRT, Design Reproduction Technology. I was really drawn to that because I knew that I love design more than anything, and I really wanted to learn how to apply my designs to all types of mediums, and I really enjoyed the classes I took here. Shout out to the professors. And I also minored in studio art, so that's why it took me a little longer to graduate, because I was doing a bunch of art stuff on the side. And I've always been an artist. I've always loved drawing. I would be an art major if I felt it would, if it was more sustainable, but I decided to make more of a shift to graphic design because it's more applicable to computers and technology and the future. So I still wanted to have some sort of artistic thing on the side, so I decided to study studio art. And while I was on campus, I worked on campus at University Housing as a graphic designer and with ITS, Information Technology Services, as well in the Cal Poly app and stuff like that. So while I was at Cal Poly, I did a number of really cool projects. Who's familiar with Camp Poly Hacks? Is anyone on the team right now? Oh my God. So I was on the inaugural team to create Camp Poly Hacks, Cal Poly's first branded hackathon. It was my last quarter when I was asked to join this independent study class, and we wanted to create a hackathon that invited more than just designers and developers, but the whole school. So the idea was to create some sort of, like almost like a music festival kind of branding to feel more exciting for people to be involved. So I was the creative director, I designed the shirts, I designed the lineups, we call them, with the map, schedule, and information, and the shirt designs, like I said. So that was a really fun experience because we got to create something from the ground up, and it's still happening today. So it's really fulfilling to see that people, it's still carrying on, and it was a really fun hackathon. So I would love to hear about what it's like now and how it's changed a little bit. So that was Camp Poly Hacks. Another really cool event that I was part of on campus was Galentine's Day. And this was an idea I came up with when I was an orientation leader. They were going through the different clubs on campus, and when they talked about the Gender Equity Center, I was like, wait, they should do something having to do with female empowerment during February. And I love the show Parks and Rec, so I pitched to them. I was like, can we do something where we incorporate ladies celebrating ladies and friendships being celebrated in February instead of just romantic relationships? And the Gender Equity Center was totally down. And my friend Trudy, who's also a GRC alum, we both tag teamed to create this other event on campus from the ground up. Did the lettering and logo design and shirt designs. We involved a lot of GRC majors. They designed greeting cards for Galentine's Day, so we gave these out at UU Hour, and it was really fun. And we had a discussion-based event at night with the Gender Equity Center where they talked about like what it is to be a woman, the boxes we put ourselves in, intersectional feminism, all that good stuff that isn't really taught in class. So it was a really enriching experience, and even Amy Poehler's Smart Girls Foundation, we talked to them and they like kind of knew about our event and sponsored us, and it was really exciting. And I just learned that it's still happening at Cal Poly, so that's really exciting too. Of course, there's also the GRC classes I took. There's my Flexo sticker and packaging class. We did some advertising for Negrante's sheep's milk ice cream, some more lettering work, book design class, Secret Garden, and The Alchemist were the books I did. All of these classes were just like fueling my creative spirit. I was able to incorporate all of my love for art in these classes and just create really fun work. And I also got to create the open house T-shirt for GRC's open house, where people got to screen print it themselves. And also, for fun, I just made the Downtown Slow geo filter. I don't know if it's still around because, oh really? Oh my God, I have to see it, because I think there's different iPhone sizes, so I wasn't sure. But I created this, and actually, if you stick around till the end, I have stickers of this I'm going to give to all of you, especially if you ask questions. So, so that was just a fun project I did because I was like, I want to keep designing and keep putting it out there. So that's me. And yeah, so, and all of this is just to show that like I had so much ambition in GRC, and GRC really just enabled all of the passions I had and created really cool stuff. But when it came to like getting towards graduation, I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like, I know I love so many things and I know I love design, but like I don't know how to put myself in a box to market to get to a job. I knew that I was good at a bunch of things, but it was really hard to choose one. And I feel like that's the general feeling when you're a senior in GRC or just in general. So I just want to talk about how this translated into a job. So post-grad expectations were, I was stoked. I was like, I'm gonna get a job full-time, straight out of college. It's gonna be super stable, financially stable, all of this stuff, you know, the dream. Unfortunately, and because I think I graduated a little later, the recruiting is a little different in December versus June. So I did have an internship at Level Studios that summer between my between my fourth year and my quarter. So that was really helpful, but it didn't turn into something full-time. So, but my expectations were, since all my friends graduated in June and got full-time jobs straight out of GRC, it's like, that's gonna be me in December, it's gonna be fine. But the reality is, it's actually really hard to get a job, and I'm from the Bay Area, where there's actually a lot of contract roles. And I'm not saying this to scare you, it's just the reality I wish I kind of was more familiar with back then when I was a bright-eyed grad student. But the reality is that like it's kind of hard to get a job, and it doesn't mean it's your fault. It's just the way it is sometimes. And what ended up happening, it was like December of my last quarter, and I got contacted by Shutterfly on Behance because I had some lettering work on there, and that was the first contract role I got out of college. And it ended up being, I knew it was going to be a contract role. It was really fun. I got to design greeting cards with Merry Christmas and different Christmas greetings on there. Some of them went live, and it was really exciting because I didn't think I could apply my lettering for an actual paying job. So that was a really great experience, and I got to work with a tight-knit team. We got to research trends, what's going to be popular, and it just taught me like how to work in that environment. And Shutterfly is like a corporate environment, so it was cool to get that experience right out of school. I knew it wasn't really going to turn into anything because Shutterfly was going through a lot of like changes in the company. They were like cutting people, there were some layoffs, and so I knew that from January to May, which I was writing Merry Christmas for like 5 months before it was even Christmas time, that it wasn't going to turn into something full time. So I was always at this point still looking for jobs, and as a contractor, that's kind of what you have to do, is just keep looking. Along the way, I found a staffing agency called Creative Circle, but there's a bunch of staffing agencies. And what staffing agencies do is that they take your resume and like give it to companies that you want to work at. Excuse me. And so that's how I was able to get my next job, which was at Goldie Blocks. And this was another temporary gig. Goldie Blocks is a startup, so going from a corporate environment at Shutterfly, getting this experience at a startup, it was like 5 years old when I joined. I was a graphic designer there, got to create really cool phone wallpapers and some branding work, and also some stop motion videos, just all sorts of stuff for their social media. And Goldie Blocks is a company that when I was there, they were making toys for girls to get into STEM fields. So they made toys to teach girls about science. Now they're more like DIY craft based, and they're more of like a media conglomerate. So when I joined, they were still at the physical toy stage, and then they turned into like a digital kind of content creation space. So the reason I'm no longer there is because they actually hired a design agency when I was there. And so I was no longer just the sole graphic designer for where they were at. It turned into something bigger, which is great for them, but I had to get laid off, and that's just how it goes sometimes. So at this point, I'm like, God dang, like, am I ever gonna get this full-time, stable job that I dreamed of? That is actually really hard to do. I was kind of like beat down, and I also like just wasn't sure what I was doing. I was like, I'm just gonna keep, like, in my head, I thought if I just work really hard at these roles, they'll hire me full-time. But like, businesses, like, sometimes it's not about you, it's not about your skill, it's just about their business. So that was something I had to learn really quickly. And at this point is when I started reframing, like, okay, it's a contract job, it's still a job. I'm still, like, at this point, I've gotten 2 different job experiences at 2 different companies that are like totally different sides of, like, there's a corporate and startup. So I realized, like, what I have to do at this point is take what I can from these jobs. Like, I'm learning digital design, I'm learning video production, like all these random skills. Like, I'm still doing all of these things, but I'm getting better at them regardless. So also during this time, I was just lettering a lot and putting it on Instagram. I had like started curating like my own art account and getting followers from old coworkers and old friends. And that is kind of what led me to my current job, which was in the beginning a contract role. So my old boss from Level was working at Elephant, and she asked me if I wanted to do some lettering work for Apple. And I was like, since when does Apple do that? But yeah, I'm down. So I ended up being part of the Lose Your Wallet Apple Pay campaign, where I got to digitize someone's chalk lettering. And then what this campaign was, it's a nationwide campaign where small businesses would start implementing Apple Pay as part of their payment systems. And when people would pay with Apple Pay, they'd get 20% off their purchase, or like 20% off coffee drinks or whatever. So it was really cool to be part of that. And along with like this lettering stuff, I got to do some social media graphic design for them because it was a social campaign. And I even got to like travel to Austin to see my work in person because I was contracting. So in between those contract gigs, I would travel. So that was really fun. And the funny thing about this job was it kind of, like, my contract kept getting extended, and in my heart I was like it'd be cool if it turned into something, but honestly I'm so beat down, like I don't think, like, whatever, it's probably not gonna happen. But then it went from like a couple months to like 6 months, and then finally they hired me full time because I was able to do what a team of 6 was doing, and I was able to like keep showing what I'm capable of. And sometimes you just have to do that. You have to show that you're irreplaceable and that you're doing the work, going above and beyond. And I know as GRC students, we do that a lot already. So you guys are set. And what was cool is that because I joined Elephant, them knowing that I can do this illustration work, I was able to do some more illustration stuff for them. This was for San Francisco Design Week. This past year, we designed shirts and merchandise that we raised money for the California wildfire victims and survivors. So we got to have like a fundraiser for San Francisco Design Week at our agency and raised a lot of money, like $4,000. This plus another shirt design. We got to raise a lot of money for those communities, which is really cool. And so from all of that, the campaign work, they placed me on a new project, which is what I'm currently on now. It's been like a year and a half, working on site at Apple, which is where I'm doing primarily visual design. So before I was doing a lot of like campaign work, and now I'm more doing visual design. I can't tell you much about what it is like at all, but basically building a platform. We're really engaging with users, and we're working with a bunch of different stakeholders and hearing what they need from this platform and building that. And I do visual design, and what that means is it's similar to, I mean, I'm sure some of you already know, but it's similar to UI design, but it's more like taking user experience, like wireframes, and making sure it's all very like visually cohesive with the brand, making sure that everything falls in line. It's like UI design, just this is like kind of what they call it, at least at Apple. So usually you have like user experience designers and then visual designers. So it's more of like the visual end of the experience. So that's like where I am currently, and I'm very grateful for this experience, for this journey, and it's taught me so much. And I feel like finally I am at that place where I am like in that stable dream job kind of feeling. And at the same time, though, when I was contracting with Elephant, that's when I decided I want to start streaming on Twitch, because I was creating all this artwork on Instagram. I felt like it was kind of missing this like intimate connection with people. Like I was posting on Instagram, but like I felt like the process of creating this work needed to be more explicit. Like I was like, yeah, it's cool to see the finished project, but like, what about all the stuff that got you there? So it was like, I think January 2018 is when I first started streaming. So it's been 2 years now, which is crazy. And I'm literally 3 times a week, 2 hours a day, for I guess 6 hours a week, I'm live streaming the work I make. Just an example, so there's a camera on my hands, camera on my face, it's like Bob Ross, and people are talking to me while I'm doing this, asking about the process, or just I'm talking about my life. And the reason I bring this up, not saying everyone should go live stream, but I was able to kind of learn a lot just by sharing my work and talking about my work. It taught me so many more skills than just like honing in on my craft. It taught me how to be more confident with what I'm doing. It taught me how to speak publicly. Like I'm used to being mic'd up and like broadcasting myself to the internet, to strangers. So that's a pretty good skill, especially when you're in a pitch and talking about your designs and talking to creative directors. So it's a really important aspect to my identity that I've started streaming, because it's helped me not only with all of these soft skills, but also create so much output. And I saw all of this online. And this is all just for fun. Like, I knew that I had all this in me, and like my job at Apple and Elephant, like it's very analytical, it's very technical, which I love because I love structure, but I also like have all this pent up creativity. And I knew like if I don't do something about it, I'm just gonna feel like really burnt out. And this is something I love to do. And since I'm gonna be making this work anyway, I wanna share it on the internet and share the process behind it. So this is some of the work I've done, and I bring up Twitch because I think since I've started live streaming, so many opportunities have come from this, and it's helped my freelance career on the side. I've gotten to sell at vendor fairs, and this has helped me engage with my community more. It's helped me be more confident in what I do, and like really start to think like maybe a few years down the line I can do my own freelance work full time. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. But then all of this has kind of led to some mural work too. And I just want to emphasize, I know this is a lot, but when I was in your shoes, I like the timing was not right when I was right out of college. The only reason I'm getting all of this now is because I worked really hard, and it kind of like success like accumulates as you progress through your career. Like the hard work will pay off, and all of this is just because I've honed in on my craft, I've gotten confident, and I've started talking to my community, and I've like applied for things. Like this was an open call for doing murals, and it ended up being, I ended up being one of 100 artists to be chosen for this thing, and it ended up being like a grid of 100 3 by 3 feet murals. And if you're ever in downtown San Jose, that's where this is, 100 block. So that's just an example of like how, like if you're visible with your work, if you're sharing, if you're open to sharing the process, like people are going to want to work with you, and people are going to see something in you. And that led me to an even bigger mural project, where it was the San Jose, the first mural in San Jose with the San Jose logo type. I didn't design this, they gave me the design, and then I added my own style to the flowers. But because of that previous mural, the Be Always Blooming, the people, the nonprofit that organized all of this, they knew I could do typography and I could do floral illustration. So it turned into this. And this is 28 by 12 feet. I've never been on a ladder taller than like 10 feet, so it was really scary, but it was really fun. And then I posted about this on LinkedIn, got like 3,000 hits, which led me to an even bigger project, which was 35 feet by 12 feet at the Avaya Stadium for San Jose Earthquakes, which is a soccer team. That was like all of these opportunities you can see, like they snowball, they work off of each other, and it's all about how well you talk about your work, how well you show off your work. And all of this is on the side of my actual job. And honestly, I'm doing these things because I love doing it. It doesn't have to pay my bills full time, not yet at least, until I feel ready for that. But all I'm saying is if you're confused about where you are in your life and your career, you don't have to choose yet, okay? You can choose one, but you can still do other things. Of course, if your contract allows it, my job is cool with us doing design work as long as it doesn't impact our actual work and there's no conflict of interest. So that's where I'm at right now. This was last year, July is when this mural went up. It's a decal, so I didn't paint that. But yeah, it's been a really exciting year. And how am I doing on time? Okay, we're good. So now I just want to go into advice. Like I told you my story. I'm not saying you should just start doing murals, start doing live streaming. Like I know that's not for everyone, and I know the thought of like sharing your work and people watching you do things is terrifying to a lot of people. I love the attention, so that's why I'm here. But I wanted to give some advice for all of you, because I know what it was like to be a student, and you know my story. Like I had such high expectations, and life doesn't really work that way sometimes. So my first piece of advice is to start where you are. If you're not sure where you're going, you have where you are right now. You have Cal Poly, you have GRC. What are ways you can get involved with your immediate community? What are problems around you right now that you see that you can start addressing with design, with app design, or what have you? Like, there's so much at your feet. And I remember being a student and thinking like, wow, like there's so many resources on campus I can use. Like I can rent a laptop, I can use a laptop at the library and look up all these things. Like there's so much opportunity right here, especially as students, especially when you get those student discounts. So, but another note about this is like a lot of my murals were because I was involved with this nonprofit that does beautify the city. So once you're involved with a community that you care about, there's opportunities in there for design. Like you don't have to travel across the country to find a job when you can just look where you are at right now. And plus, it's good to stimulate your local economy. It's good to, solve problems right where you are. So that's one. Another one is to know your strengths and play to them. This is something I tell my friends a lot if they're stressing out about like not being able to do something. Like sometimes other people are naturally better at those things, and you can delegate those tasks to somebody else, or at least know what you're good at so that you can capitalize on those. I know I'm good at talking to people. I know I'm good at sharing my thoughts and my process with people. So that's why I started streaming, and that's why I've gotten so much better at the craft I do with ink. So knowing your strengths and playing to them can really take you far, because you're already moving with what you're naturally good at. It's not, if you're like trying to work on something that really frustrates you that you're maybe not naturally good at, it's like putting the accelerator and the brakes on at the same time. You're not really like it's not as fluid. So that's that on that. Say yes and figure it out. Sometimes you're given opportunities and the only thing holding you back is the thought that you can't do it. And honestly, the only way I did these murals is because I was like, yeah, I'm going to do that. And then then that's when I was like, okay, how am I going to get this design on this 12-foot wall? How am I going to do that? And then you work backwards. Then you do your research. Sometimes the only thing holding you back is not saying yes. You can always figure it out. We're really smart kids. We're really smart students. We have Google. We have YouTube. Everything's out there. You just need to take that opportunity. Same with the contract jobs I did. If I didn't say yes, I wouldn't have a job. So it's is any job better than no job? Sometimes it is. So say yes, then figure it out. Another thing is relationships first, network second. The main takeaway for this is don't really treat people like numbers, especially if you want a job. Try to get to know the people that you want to work with, and if you have worked with people in the past, check in on them. Don't just treat them don't treat it like a transactional relationship, because relationships, genuine, caring relationships, will take you farther that way. And that's how I got my job at Elephant. My boss at the time, my boss from Level, who was at Elephant, she was such a great mentor to me, and we talk on Instagram, and she's an amazing role model. And I think what gets you far in your job is honestly if people like you. So if you're likable, people will remember you, people will think of you, and then hire you. So it'll go a lot longer if you create relationships. Another thing is to be your own advocate. Something that I had to learn was to talk about your own work and talk about the good things you do. Because not everyone's going to monitor, your manager isn't going to monitor you day to day on what you're doing. You have to speak up about what you're doing. You have to be comfortable with what you're doing. And if something's not right, you have to speak up, because you can't count on someone to do that for you. And this is just a life thing, not even just career, but stand up for yourself, because your career is something that you're crafting yourself. Your parents or your supporters or your teachers won't be there for you, and you have to be that for yourself sometimes. Another tip is to keep experimenting. I know as much as we love school, it doesn't teach us everything, and especially in the design industry, things are changing all the time. And I know something I want to experiment with is motion design and prototyping, because that's kind of where it's headed. So knowing the trends and what is important in your industry, whatever it is, experiment with those and test your abilities, because everything you know in school, there's still so much more to learn, and you just have to be open to learning more. Another thing is you win some and you learn some. I think I'm really glad I had the mindset when I was contracting that none of this is lost time. It's always going to amount to something. And even if I don't get a full-time job, it doesn't mean I've lost. It doesn't mean I'm defeated. I'm still learning. And this is just a life thing. I'm always still learning. You get your wins, and if you don't get your wins, it doesn't mean you wasted your time. Hard work always pays off. And lastly, trust your journey. Sounds kind of cheesy, but honestly, you just have to trust the process. If the timing isn't right for you right now, it doesn't mean it's never going to be right for you. It just means you're not ready for it. And there's always so much more you're going to be experiencing. Everything happening right now doesn't determine the rest of your life. Trust that it's going to work out if you work hard, if you're dedicated, if you're doing all these other things on these slides. It'll work out, and just trust the process. And that's all I have for you right now. Thank you for being such a great audience. That was kind of quick. But I have stickers to give out, and please ask any questions. Yes, Lorraine. Do you want to, can you hand, thank you.
Tell me about the Anthony fish towel that you did.
Oh yeah, I don't know if I can find, let me just pull up my Instagram, I guess. Oh no, I don't have Wi-Fi. That's fine. So my friend is in love with Anthony from Queer Eye, and I'm sure many of us are. And, oh, keynote quit, okay. So we actually bought meet and greet tickets to meet him in San Francisco. Honestly, my favorite's JVN, but Anthony is cool too. Let me go back to, so we ended up getting VIP tickets. It wasn't a random thing, we planned to go, and I just really wanted to, oh, I have business cards too. I really wanted to just create something for Anthony because I know he wears a towel on his shoulder all the time. So I was like, what if, like, it'd be cool if I could like design a towel for him and like give it to him at the meet and greet, because we got to like meet him, take a picture with him. And yeah, so, and we're all like lined up. There's like 100 people in this line, and they're like just shuffling all of us in. And they like, you hand your phone to someone and then they take a picture and it's like, okay, you're done. But I take out and I made like 6 of these towels, and I had 2, one for him and then one for me, for him to sign. And it definitely like tripped him up. He was not expecting to get like a kitchen towel. This is on my Instagram, by the way, if you want to see the picture of it. So I gave it to him, and he was like so stunned. He was so excited. He had someone from his team take a picture of both of us like holding our towels up. And I asked him to sign it. No one else was asking for signatures on anything, so I think I held up the line and he got kind of stressed, but it was fine. I was like, you know what, this is good. Maybe he'll wear it on the show someday. We'll see. Yeah.
Do you think the decision to do GRC rather than like art and design or something like that gave you kind of a leg up in the industry?
Yes, and I talk about this a lot. I think I mean, at first I didn't know the difference between GRC and design, and I was like, shoot, did I like make the right decision? But I quickly learned that like what's great about GRC is it teaches you contextual knowledge about what you're creating. I love that I learned about the printing process and all the, like, I like working backwards from the specs, and I think GRC really taught me how important that was, because I print my own work, I get my stuff screen printed, I know how to communicate with these printers, I know how to set things up for like high quality prints, so I think GRC really gave me the language and the understanding to create really great work, and I think that is really what set me apart from other designers, is because like I like didn't have to ask these questions, like I just understood. Yeah, more efficient. Yeah.
I'm a DOT senior, also from the Bay Area.
Nice.
And my number one question, obviously, was so great, and I could ask you about that. But what was the journey for you going back to the Bay Area, because that's obviously such a hot commodity that you're also a contracting work. Like, how
Yeah. So I forgot to mention, that's important. My family's in the Bay Area, so I was privileged to live at home. It's not the case for everyone, and I feel like if I wasn't going to live in the Bay Area with my parents, then my journey would have been way different. Like I would have got a job like in something I wasn't really fond of just because I needed to make money. And that's sometimes the case for some people, and that's totally valid. So I think I knew about the contracting world before going back, because in the Bay Area, it was just, that's the reality of it a lot of the times, and it's so annoying because it's like, we want stability, but sometimes it's great if you want to freelance, because then you can like do these monthly gigs and then travel, or freelance, do your own career. So
if you don't mind me asking, how long were you at home? I'm like, that's like my very much my
yeah.
reality, and I'm
So I was at home until I got my full-time offer.
okay.
So quite a while, like about a year, and it was really hard. But you make do, and I mean, it's worth it because you don't have to pay rent, and Bay Area is expensive, so yeah. Yeah.
What are your favorite like mediums to use?
Yeah, when I'm making art, I'm always doing it in ink. Sharpies, gel pens. I love black and white because it's easy to work with, especially with the GRC knowledge. I can just like vectorize things and then colorize it digitally, so that really helps me just like create the bare bones of something and then elevate it digitally, or color it when it's printed. Yeah. Yeah.
Is that like how you did all of those ending illustrations in the slideshow?
Yeah. So this is done on Procreate on my iPad. But yeah, a little fun technique I do is like you trace over the same word 3 times, and then each one is a new layer, and then you can just turn it into a GIF that repeats. So it's more like hand illustrated. Yeah. Yeah.
How do you feel like interviewing for a job in design is different than like interviewing for a traditional job?
It depends on the company, and I feel like the ways I've gotten into my jobs were not traditional, so I don't know if I can fully answer that. I know like some companies do design challenges where they make you like follow a prompt that they create. The ways I've gotten my jobs were just, they'd already chosen me, so it was like very like transactional. I'd be like, yes, I want to do this, then it's paperwork. With Elephant, they didn't even interview me because they wanted someone really quick for that first lettering gig with them, and then it just turned into a full-time thing. So can't really speak to that. I know friends who are going through design interviews and they sound terrifying because you have to prepare so much work depending on what kind of design you're doing. So yeah, I mean, but at the essence of it all, you're talking about your strengths. You're talking about, one interview question I remember was just like, what was a really tough situation at work and how did you make it work? Or like, what was a conflict you were in and how did you make it work? That's always a question I'm thinking about because it always trips me up. So if you could start thinking about like examples of that, it's an important interview question. They want to know how you work with other people and how you can get through hard times with other people. Yeah.
When you're starting a new lettering project, like, how do you come up with the inspiration for that? Is there some place to go, or do you like use just
Yeah. So what's great about streaming is it's really like made me super efficient with creating work. But the way I come up with the words is it's usually based on like stuff I journal or stuff I want to remember. My whole like thesis for the work I make on stream is that I'm spending like 2 hours a day on it. So I want to make sure it's a message that I really internalize. So a lot of my like work is like positive quotes or just like meaningful things that I want to spend time on. And as I'm drawing it, like I'm kind of taking in that message. So it's very intentional, the things I write, because if I'm writing something that's like super negative, it's gonna like bump me out. So that's part of that process. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so I am on site at Apple 5 days a week. And as much as I could tell you, on the day-to-day, so we have design sprints. So there's like items laid out for us to finish in like 2 weeks. Or 2 or 3 weeks. So within those 2 to 3 weeks, we have certain objectives we're working on that we've defined in those sprints. Every day we have what we call stand-up meetings, and where everyone, so the designers, developers, the BAs, like are all talking about what they're working on today, what they worked on yesterday, and what they want to accomplish. And then it's just like, that way we're all kind of in sync with what we're doing. And if we have any questions, people bring it up to clarify. And then pretty much the whole day I'm in front of my computer building according to what we want to design in the sprint. And then towards the end of like the 2 weeks, we spec everything out. So define the sizing of everything, define the styling according to the brand guidelines we have. And then we hand it off to the developers. So yeah, it's never boring because we're always creating something new. And sometimes like we realize there's technical limitations to what we've built, and then we have to go back and design it. So yeah.
being like part of the contract position, what's the work environment like for that? Like, are you still in the office every day for
Yeah.
your extent of the contract? Or?
Good question. So it depends on the role, but for my jobs at Shutterfly and Goldie Blocks, I was going into the office every day. Sometimes they say you don't have to, but I really wanted to like show up and just like be there to like show my face because I felt like that would get me a little farther. But yeah, usually it feels like you're part of the full-time team. Like there isn't really like a clear boundary sometimes, which is when it can get kind of confusing when you're not invited to certain events because you're a contractor. It's like that at Apple too. So yeah, you usually show up like a regular employee. Sometimes they provide materials for you like a computer, sometimes they don't. Just depends on like the budget and how like seriously they treat their freelancers or their contractors. Yeah.
Do you feel like you learn more like working in a freelance role where you kind of have to teach yourself everything, or more in like one of these team roles where you have like mentors being able to teach you?
It's a good question. I feel like because I had to learn a lot on my own, but I really didn't like that because I was so used to like the structure of school, and I feel like I learn a lot better when I see like people showing me the right way to do things, like just seeing like professional, like people who are like 5 years, 10 years older than me present things. I'm like, okay, that's what I have to do. Like I feel like I grow faster when I have people who know what they're doing teach me things. But it's not to say I don't learn anything on my own. It's just like way more, it's quicker for me to see it in front of me. Yeah.
Kind of going back to when you were a student, what were like some of the things that you did that like led up to you working with Open House?
I don't know. I think there was just like a shirt design contest, right? Or something.
So whenever there's a contest, we send an email out, and it's just a matter of who's gonna
Apply.
pay attention and do it. And she would always do it
Because I do the most.
So,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think of all the different things that you did. And
I think, so yeah, that's the thing, say yes and then figure it out later. Like there's so many emails that get sent out and the only thing between you and an opportunity is just doing the work. And if anything, at least it's like a portfolio piece or like you learn something from that process. So really just like be open to opportunities and take them, and sometimes you win, sometimes you get it printed at open house, and that was really cool. Yeah. Yeah.
I know you said that you got your job in an unconventional way, but I'm wondering if you have any tips on for someone to like get into the agency world?
Yeah, so I think it's a couple things. It's what work you do and what work they do as an agency. I think it's like about matching your style to what they do, or like making sure it's a good match, because they want to have people who can perform up to their caliber of work. But it's also about knowing people in agencies and like kind of it's a game of networking and exposure, and also showing what your skills are. And like I think I've gotten most of my like design, like UI design roles just by knowing someone there, and someone I got one of the jobs at the career fair here for Level. So it sometimes comes down to like just knowing people, or like getting to know people, or like like an informational interview with someone who works in an agency or something, because there's sometimes no one way to get into a job, and I know that now. So yeah.
What's the culture like at Elephant? Is it just a bunch of designers together, and do you actually like interact with them, or are you actually doing your own, like you're at Apple all the time?
Yeah, good question. So our team at Apple for Elephant used to be like a team of like 6 people, 6 designers, 1 business analyst. But it depends on like the project. So my team on site at Apple, some people have left, or some people, basically it's down to me and another person who are Elephant at Apple. But then there's like other teams where there's like a full team of Elephant people on site at Apple, or they work from the SF office for Elephant doing another client project. So there's more than just designers at Elephant, for example. There's like strategists, there's business analysts, there's copywriters, like there's whole teams of design, or of people for branding and marketing jobs. So it just depends on which project you're on. And I think that's the case for most agencies. And what's great about agencies is like there's so many different projects that if you're on one for long enough, they can put you on another one, and you get multiple like experiences with multiple clients a lot. So yeah. Sometimes 10 more minutes, maybe 9 more minutes.
So when did you start hand lettering? I think it was when you were like second year?
Yeah, so
Started it.
yeah, it was about my second year, which 2013. Well, 2013 is when I like even knew what lettering was, thanks to I think typography class. But I've always like drawn, like illustrated as a kid, and I think as I've gotten into graphic design, I was more interested in drawing words because it was easier, because I didn't have to come up with like these abstract concepts. I could just write a word. So knowing the typography really helped. So 2013 is when I like started drawing letters, and then 2015, 2016 is when I really like took it seriously and started learning about how to like vectorize them or how to digitize them and how to apply them to like different objects like stickers or prints and stuff. But it wasn't until like I'd say 2017, like the year after graduating, is when I really honed in on like my style of like black and white typographic illustrations. And then as I was started streaming, I used a bigger canvas, and that's when it's gotten more detailed and more, my ideas for my work have been applied to more objects instead of just print. So it's been an ongoing process. But yeah, it definitely started in GRC, thanks to typography class and learning about Jessica Hish. And yeah, and it's made me want to like learn how to mural too, because it's a bigger canvas to put letters on too.
Would you show us the time lapse of your graduation announcement?
Sure. I actually added it because we talked about it. So
Cool.
this is a project I did at the end of my time at Cal Poly. Oh, I don't have sound. It's okay. The sound's not important. But I really wanted to create a unique graduation announcement, and I think I asked Lawler if I could get the photography studio in the basement and like set this up. I was in here for 6 hours inking my grad announcement and created this video in the library because my computer wasn't strong enough. So I had like a Mac desktop with my external hard drive and like thousands of photos, all really high res, like put them all together on QuickTime. pretty much what we did in 202, right? Photography class, making the time lapse. So, oops. This pretty much summarizes everything I talked about. I think it was shooting every 3 seconds. Yeah. I was so hungry afterward. I was like, I haven't eaten in 6 hours. And it's 11 by 14, the paper. I had it already sketched out. I did that in 204. And then I rented everything from GRC. And then just for fun, because I wanted this as my announcement, and I printed it out on 5x7 little cards to give out, and then I had like a QR code to this video, which is on my YouTube. So 3 years ago, not too bad, holds up. Any more questions? Yeah. Sorry, I can't hear you.
What's your process of digitizing your handwriting?
Yeah, it depends, but since I've gotten my iPad, I've just either used Adobe Illustrator Draw on there to vectorize it or just image trace it on Illustrator. So yeah, it's nice to have an iPad because I can like directly draw onto, trace over it. But yeah, I have credits on here, thanks to Cal Poly. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
Do an alumni show of your stuff.
Oh yeah, that'd be really cool. Yeah.
How have you kind of built your platform on both Instagram and Twitter?
Very slowly. It's not as easy as I thought it would be, but I think the more things you involve yourself with, it pays off. And yeah, I think depending on who you tag or like the people you get involved with in person, like I said, hard work always pays off. Like the work I'm doing it's only going to gain more traction. Like as long as I'm happy with the work I'm doing now, it's just a matter of people seeing it. So it's like the more engagements I do like this, or the more people I meet, like more artists I meet who have big followings, like it kind of just grows organically. I never want to buy my followers, but yeah, it's about consistency. It's about knowing the algorithm and yeah, showing up. Yeah.
How did you get started with the nonprofit, the mural
Mhm.
one? 'Cause, like, was that just like you applying for the 100 Boston? Or?
Yeah, so around the same time I moved back to the Bay Area, I found out there's this local nonprofit called Local Color, and they're about beautifying the city with murals. So they're like, it's the intersection of paying artists and also beautifying the city. And when I found out about them, they had like an artist space, and when I moved back, I was like, I want to be more involved in the art community because I didn't really do that at SLO. So I like talked to them a little bit, and I had signed up for this thing really early on, and then like a year later they finally got back to us about applications and they accepted me. So I think it's just about, yeah, showing up to your community, seeing what's out there, because there's a lot of nonprofits out there, especially nonprofits that need design work and design help and artists. So it's just about like looking for them and starting where you are, like I said. Yeah. All right, we have 2 minutes. I also have business cards if you want any, and I'll be at the alumni social tonight, so I can talk to you guys.
You're probably going to get stormed as soon as this ends, so we'll just go ahead and give her her gift and thank her. Applause for...
Thank you so much. Oh, this is so cute.